Commissioner, ministers, state secretaries, ambassadors, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you to our panel. I'm calling it Connecting Europe today. My name is Patrick. I'll be your moderator, and I'm glad to be here. What a distinguished panel we do have here today, and what a distinguished audience we have here today. I came in from Berlin on Friday and had the pleasure to spend the whole weekend at this beautiful location and walk around the lake a couple of times. And I must say, the opening yesterday was grandiose. I also enjoyed the 10 p.m. panel. Not too many events that I go to do you have 10 p.m. to midnight sessions. Anybody go to that night owl session in the audience? Just raise your hand if you were there. Very good. Anybody go to that special panel afterwards? I think it was called the Let's Go Drink Slovenian Wine panel, right? That went till 2 o'clock in the morning, I think. So I welcome you deeply and with honor and respect for all of your attendance and your attention here today. And in order to facilitate everything a little bit better, I'd like to step away from the podium. You may notice that I do not have a strong German accent, even though I'm from Germany. I have a little tiny bit of an American accent. And for us Americans, it's really hard to stand, unless you're John F. Kennedy, stand at the thing here. So I'm going to take my hand microphone. And is it turned on? There we go. Okay. So please bear with me. So here I am, and I would like to do a couple things before we get started. First of all, how many of you in the audience are in political positions or in government roles that are here today? Just raise your hand if you're in the government or political space. Okay, how many of you are business people and work for companies? Raise your hands there too. That's a good mix. How about anybody in academia or in school systems and academia? That's a good mix, okay. Anybody here from outside of Slovenia? If you're from outside of Slovenia, we got a good mix there. And how many Slovenes or living in Slovenia do we have in the room? Then raise your hand too. Oh, that's a whole lot. Now, you guys are lucky because this is one of the most beautiful countries on the planet, okay? And every other country you come from is also the most beautiful country in the world, just like your children are the most beautiful children in the world, right? That's okay, okay? Now, what I'd like to do is invite you, because the topic of the BLED Strategic Forum this year is partnerships, is working together, is coming together and connecting your potentials with each other. And in order to facilitate that and warm you up, because you just came from lunch, and potentially that's always the toughest spot to have for a panel. So we're going to invest a couple minutes before we start, and I'm going to invite you to a short 6-minute warm-up exercise, okay? And in order to facilitate this warm-up exercise, you need to find a partner, one other person besides yourself that you're going to do this exercise with. So you can already kind of look around you, and I'd like you to find someone. Don't sit by yourself, because we can't live partnership if we're not willing to partner with anybody around us, right? So this exercise is going to utilize just 2 people. You're going to be given a single question, and you will be given the opportunity to answer that single question, okay? Very simple process, okay? And the way we're going to do that is I'm going to ask you to find your partner first, and anybody that doesn't have a partner, then raise your hand. So I'm going to give you like 15 seconds. So find a partner. So, thank you. Who does not have a partner? Raise your hand. You don't have a partner? Raise your hand. You don't have a partner? Anybody else does not have a partner, raise your hand. We don't have a partner, so we've got a guy right up front here. So either you go to the back or you come to the front. You may choose, you too. Anybody else does not have a partner? Okay. You guys got partners over here? You're good to go. Okay, so here comes the exercise. I would like you to find a comfortable position where you face each other. You know, like wiggle around a little bit. And I'm going to ask you a question. And one of you must begin. You'll get 2 minutes to answer this question. The person answering the question is going to get the undivided attention of the other person. You're going to listen for 2 minutes. I'm going to time you. You don't need to use your clocks. I'm going to tell you when the 2 minutes are over, okay? In that 2 minutes, you listen with all of your attention. You speak with all of your attention to the question I'm going to give you. If you run out of words after a minute, you get a minute of silence. Okay, so you're going to get 2 minutes of attention whether you say something or don't. After the 2 minutes, the person that listens, you're going to give 1 minute of positive, valued feedback. Very simple. After you listen for 2 minutes, you get 60 seconds to say thank you and give valued, positive feedback. I'm from Germany. We always use criticisms in our feedback, right? No. Positive, valued feedback for 60 seconds. If you run out of things to say in 30 seconds, it's 30 seconds silence. Valued feedback with no words. That's basically it. After that, you switch. The other person gets 2 minutes for the same question. You listen for 2 minutes. Then you give 60 minutes feedback. I will give you the times. So I'm going to start you here in a second. I'll tell you when the 2 minutes are over. 1 minute feedback. Then another 2 minutes. Another 1 minute feedback. We're going to do it on stage also. So the ministers and the commissioner, we're all going to go through this exercise. But you need to have one partner. If you're alone, you don't have a partner, you need to raise your hand, and we need to find you a partner. Okay? Good. Are you ready? So face each other, decide who begins to answer, and then I will give you the question. So you need to know who's going to start, otherwise you might get confused, okay? So the question will be, who am I and why am I here? Who am I, why am I here? Okay, the 2 minutes are over. So finish the thought that you're on, and I'm going to time 1 minute of positive, appreciative feedback. That 1 minute will begin now. Okay, so that 1 minute is over. I would now ask you to switch if you can. I know it's good, it always feels good to be nice to people, but here you got to switch back over, and the 2 minutes for the other person begins now. Okay, the 2 minutes is up. I'd like you to switch, finish that thought. 1 minute of positive feedback begins now. Okay, so your time is over. Now feel free to use maybe 10, 15 seconds to thank each other. And if you want to reflect, do that briefly. And we will re-begin in about 15 seconds. Okay. I welcome you back to Connecting Europe panel. And I do believe partnerships are an extremely important element of any undertaking we would ever want to do together. How easy it can be to connect, I hope you were able to experience in the 6 minutes of the exercise, as we did together up here. I would like you now to try to take that attention that you've given to each other and focus for the next 60 minutes to 80 minutes. That's a long time. It's a lot of energy. I'd like you to be able to focus to the front of our panel, and each of the panelists will now have the opportunity to briefly introduce themselves. And I would start with Commissioner Violeta Bulc. Would you please begin? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Patrick, and it's a real pleasure and excitement being a guest in your own country. Of course, especially seeing that so many people are actually interested in transport, that is even greater pleasure. And just to briefly introduce myself, how do I see myself and why I'm here is really my primary mission is to connect, to inspire, and to be your voice, really, on that connecting point. So I hope that today's day will offer some great new inspirations and ideas that we can then explore together in the future and create a better single European transport area that creates a better single European market and even more that keeps Europe in the leading position globally. Thank you.
I would now ask Minister Gasperčić from Slovenia, please.
Thank you. I would also like to thank you for having me as a panelist here. It is also a great pleasure for me to be here. I am a Minister of Infrastructure of Slovenia. Professionally, I'm a civil engineer, so it's a bit maybe for me harder to talk about imaginary things, but nevertheless, I'm used to talk about concrete things, about concrete projects, and this is my main mission actually as a minister. But nevertheless, here in Bled Forum is all about making new partnerships, and this is also one of my main objectives when being here, to make as much as new partnerships possible. I already had some good discussions with my colleagues, ministers, some other experts, and I'm looking forward for this panel and also for other opportunities to make these new partnerships. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Gasperčić. I would now ask Minister Tok of the Czech Republic, please.
Good afternoon. I am also glad that I can be here and I was invited for this panel. I think it is great inspiration which I expect from here. Who am I? I am not a typical politician, although I am the transport minister of Czech Republic. Last 20 years I was in the top business position in the various companies. Last one was big construction giant Skanska, and why I am in the politician, I am sometimes saying by mistake, but hopefully I can help our country and maybe people around us to work better and to see things from the different perspective than just from the political perspective. My main task is of course to build roads, build highways, and to restart the construction business in Czech Republic. However, I don't feel that this is the main mission, because pouring concrete, it's not only reason for the roads and for the highways and for the railways. This is more connecting people, building bridges between the people, between the nations, and I think this is most important things for partnership, because it was visible here. When people meet, they can partner. If they cannot meet and they cannot travel, they will not do this.
Thank you, Minister Tuk. I would now ask, excuse me, I would like to ask our friend from the Republic of Poland, Minister Solopka, please.
Thank you very much, Patrick. I'm very happy to be here, and especially I am happy because in spite of my last name, I'm not the last in this row in this case. So I will not sum up. I will wait for the colleagues to do that. In fact, my situation, my professional situation is slightly different, for instance, from Minister Chok's, because I have been a civil servant for my whole professional life. Almost a quarter of a century. And I joined the public service because then at the beginning of the transformation, everybody joined enthusiastically. And I stayed because so many projects came that I didn't get rid of the enthusiasm. And especially transport. It's not only, as we understand, dull infrastructure and figures, but it is more about dreams, hopes, plans. And what we do together is planning, dreaming, hoping, and then executing. And that's very good. And I also am here because I wish I could share my enthusiasm with you, with the colleagues from beautiful Slovenia. And hence I'm really thankful that it was organized here in Bled, the place I really love. It's special. There is nothing similar to that in the world. At least I didn't see. So thank you very much, and I hope our 80 minutes would be interesting.
Thank you, Minister Zalewka. I would now ask our friend from the Slovak Republic, Minister Palko, please.
Thank you very much, Patrick. First, I'm thankful for the opportunity to discuss with you about very important common issues of the area of the transport. I think that transport is a very important area and very important and basic assumptions for the single European market. I'd like to introduce myself a little bit. I'm State Secretary of the Ministry of Transport, Construction and Regional Development of the Slovak Republic. Our ministry is very large and transport is a very important part of this ministry. I working in this position more than 3 years, and before I was the Secretary of the Ministry of Finance. I'm not interested only in public administrations, but I'm interested in academics sector too. I'm teaching fiscal policy, macroeconomics, and regional development. I think that this session will be very helpful and successful for next cooperation between our countries, and I'd like to say that Bled Strategic Forum is my second experience because I discussed about tourism last year in this forum. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister Palko. I'd like to go to our friend from Germany and introduce Michael Müller, member of the board of Fraport, please.
Well, thank you very much. Very loud. First of all, I have to reduce your expectations. I'm no politician. But on second hand, I'm very happy to be here. I'm a member of the executive board. Actually, I have been entering the company 31 years ago as an office clerk, then having been head of training center within our company since 1992, 1997 to 2009. I've been head of human resources within the company, and from 2009 to 2012 I have been head of ground handling. And 2012 I have been appointed for the executive board, one of 4 members of the executive board of Fraport. Why am I here? I'm very happy that we have been successful last year in integrating Aerodrome Ljubljana within our group. And I would like to improve this relationship and would be very happy to learn more about this beautiful country. And on the other hand, more generally spoken, for me it is very important that infrastructure in general and maybe aviation industry as well in particular is should have a better support because in other countries infrastructure enterprises are understood as part of an engine of the economy, while in Germany, maybe also in other European countries, we usually have big problems in expanding our infrastructure, and that would be a good thing to discuss in this panel. Thank you.
Dankeschön, Herr Müller. I would like to come back to the beautiful country of Slovenia and introduce Mr. Dragomir Matic, the president of Luka Koper. Please.
Thank you very much. From my side, just briefly, let's say from my side, I have already 30 years experience in logistics. Out of that, 26 years in the port, and the rest in forwarding and shipping agency. So let's say quite common topic for me. And why I'm here? Probably the first step because Port of Koper is the only Slovenian port. And the second one, because the port is connecting. How is port connecting? In different ways. We know port is connecting on one side seaside, on the other side hinterland. On the other side we are connecting different partners, different customers which are trying to sell and transport the goods from one part of the world to the other. So let's say in this respect port itself is very interested in infrastructure, in hinterland, and also the other one, as all the others, let's say, logistic providers who are involved in this logistic chain, because port is only one part of the chain.
Thank you very much. So I thank our panelists for their first brief introduction. I thank all of you for your intensity in connecting a while ago. We briefly spoke about it at the stage here that if we didn't interrupt you, you probably would have continued for the rest of the day. And I would like to set the stage around our topic a little bit more explicitly. And you will have the opportunity to hear even more from each of our panelists before we begin the interactive portion of the panel today. Being able to have different perspectives on what transport and infrastructure means for all of us is an element of what we're going to do today. But when we invest to connect Europe, it's not just about the physical infrastructures that we will put in place. When we connect our countries and connect our cultures and connect our people, we find the bridges and the pathways where we can share all the goodness that our countries, our regions, and our cultures can bring to bear. No other part of the planet brings together so many diverse cultures and languages, histories for many thousands of years, in such close proximity to one another. Within about a 2-hour airplane ride, we can reach every single corner of this continent. We're able to bring elements closer to each other than they were ever before. Not only by utilizing infrastructure and technology do we have the opportunity of bringing our communities and our cultures and our people closer to each other, but utilizing elements of that beyond the infrastructure to establish social cohesion in manners beyond anything we've seen before is an opportunity that every single one of us can contribute to in one form or another. Our panelists today are in unique positions to influence the future of that infrastructure and the results that it can deliver more than any others I have seen brought together in a panel before. I do believe that when we ask the question of the vision of that future Europe, and every single country's and region's and company's role in establishing that, we have the opportunity to set a baseline not just for our communities and countries and cultures today, but also for our children and our grandchildren. The opportunity to connect and be closer than we ever were is the opportunity to lay a groundwork for future society. And yes, infrastructure and grids and smart cities and all the other mechanisms that we have at our disposal will help us. But what is the element beyond the infrastructure itself? We now have the opportunity to hear different perspectives on transport and infrastructure and listen to those thoughts from each of our panelists. I would begin by asking our Commissioner for Transport in Europe, Violeta Bulc, to begin with her opening statement. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Patrick, again. And he gave me only 3 minutes. I can talk 3 hours, so it's going to be a very good challenge for me. But let me be very quick and very frank. Patrick made a very broad, socially full of social awareness introduction. So I will just contribute a real direct information about how transport can relate to that. For sure, European Commission and European Union itself has a very big challenge ahead of itself. How to reposition itself in a global scheme and how to make sure that European economy is sustainable and it can really generate enough value for people to continue living a modest, very inspiring and innovative lifestyle. And that is a huge responsibility. The role of transport is big. We are basically creating we are enablers. We are creating infrastructure for people and goods to move, to connect, to correlate, to collaborate, and of course to produce and then distribute again the goods and services and continue with that on a sustainable level. So in order to keep that human perspective of a very tangible and very technical field is a challenge itself. But I think the Commission, the ministers, the Council and the Parliament is very much aware of that. And it's really great to see how this humanistic part of the such a tangible portfolio as transport is really coming forward. That's why the core elements, the core challenges of European transport for the next 5 years and hopefully for the next period that are coming, that we are setting the foundation for, are evolving around a few core topics that I'd like to share with you today. First of all, digitalization. Digitalization has really not been present enough in transport. That's why competitiveness is not at the top level. So we are really encouraging now businesses, governments, and of course the commission structures that we all sit together and devote our strategic and action plans to enable higher level of digitalization, which means creation of value-added services and more integrated services in transport. The second one, very important issue is decarbonization. Transport contributes today over 24% of all carbon emissions, and out of that, over 70% come from road transport. So we're very much dedicated to change that. So our actions are tiered and steered towards shifting to rail from road transport, especially freight, and that's why railways for the next 5 years, actually even until 2030, are one of the major investments efforts in Europe in transport, because we want to connect ports, we want to connect airports, we want to connect all the major industrial zones in order to make sure that when we grow and when we continue to generate goods, we don't continue to destroy our environment. On the other hand, of course, that also contributes to the quality of life, not only in the sense of CO2 emissions, but also in the sense of noise, congestions, and of course, road safety and accidents, which unfortunately, in spite of all our efforts, are not decreasing in a favorable manner. So this is then the second orientation. That's why we are encouraging the use of electrification. We have lots of things in that respect right now in our financial mechanisms. Then we are encouraging also the use of natural gas, LNG, and similar, especially in the maritime business. So let's hope together with the constant inflow of new ideas, we will be able to manage this second challenge well as well. The third one is that, especially in transport, Europe is really weak in internationalization. So that's why all our efforts today, we're bringing together stakeholders in different aspects of transport and encouraging them not to look only for solutions in Europe, but to go beyond and to actively involve themselves in a global transport strategies and operations. So here we're going to see some important moves in aviation business, hopefully with the new aviation strategy that is coming out by the end of the year. We're doing the same with railways now and trying to engage railway manufacturers and railway service providers to come along with us with the political side of the engagement and make greater influence on the global scale. The fourth element I've mentioned a few times is humanization. Bring the human face to everything that we do and to really understand that no matter what we do it for people. And we do it for environment, which again, people are environment. So this is a very important aspect, and I hope I get the support from all of you, and I see it more and more from the ministers, so the solutions are more have a human face. However, all these four core drivers cannot be enabled without a very strong push in innovation and investments. And these are two core enablers in order to achieve the changes in the previously mentioned four drivers. Here we see that Europe is now seriously challenged because we are way too used to subsidies, we are way too lazy, sorry to use this expression, in investments that we always count that it's going to be free money flowing in. But this commission bravely entered a new way of engaging private capital to join the infrastructure investments in order to really engage also especially institutional private investors to participate and of course bring to infrastructure also a bit more tangible returns than we had so far. That's why we launch, as of today, there is officially a portal for the innovative European Strategic Innovative Fund called EFSI, or better known as a Juncker's Plan, is started to take operational side, and we hope that many good projects for that will come from this region. The needs, you'd be surprised, only in transport for until 2030 are around 500 billion euros. And today we have the largest ever budget available, which is 26 billion. So you can see what an incredible gap it is. But if I share with you that the need for infrastructure in Europe for the next coming years is 1.8 trillion euros, you can see that we are seriously challenged to look for new ways how the infrastructure, how we're going to handle infrastructure and how we're going to actually then manifest our needs and make sure that infrastructure is not an obstacle, but it's a solution to new evolving business models and social structures that we would like to live in. So, huge opportunity for everyone. So I'm very happy to hear all the ideas and all the partnerships and all new strategic projects and platforms that will evolve out of meetings like that and the future meetings. And the European Commission is here to listen. We really do listen. We really do want to hear good ideas, and we're more than happy to share our thoughts. And I'm sure that today's day will provide some of them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Bulc. I appreciate it. And we'll be coming back to some of those points a lot later in the discussion. I'd like to pass right on over to Minister Gaspersic, please, from Slovenia.
Thank you. So, what are the perspectives in transport? I thought to myself that perhaps I should start with saying that I'm looking forward for the changes and challenges that are ahead of us in transport sector. The Commissioner Bulc already mentioned some important challenges that are in front of us, which are decarbonization of transport, digitalization, which is also one of game-changing modes or topics which can change the transport as we see it now in the near future, actually. And of course, there is also one important topic which is always around and about transport, which are investments. So we in Republic of Slovenia, we try to envisage all this in these topics in our strategy of development of transport in next 15 years. It's a strategy which sets these main goals up to 2030. And the main focuses are, of course, making this transport, all sectors of transport. It deals with the roads, railways, air transport, shipping. So all these modes of transport, also public transport, which is also very, very important. So all these sectors are dealt with, and the goals are set. And for what it's important for Slovenia, it's going into direction of making this transport more green, more efficient. The priority are set in developing railway sector. Priorities are set in developing public transport, which is the most important development which is going to take place in Slovenia in next years.
Thank you, Minister Gaspersic. I will now pass on to Minister from Czech, Minister Tok, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Patrick. I will talk about my introductory speech will be more about down to the earth things, not about nice development, because I have to admit that we have now 25 years from the big change, and we would like to be in the position that we overcome everything, but unfortunately this is not true. When we are talking about connecting people and infrastructure, we need to understand that Czech Republic had half of border as an iron curtain before. So this was not only the fact that we had a fence along our border, but also there were no connections. There was, I think, only 3 connections to the West Europe. So you can imagine that with tearing down the fence, now we would like to rebuild pretty soon all the connections which are there. And for example, this December we will reopen one railway which was closed 1951. And we are reopening things which were already done many times. So this is one aspect. Second aspect is maybe also very simple, and it's hindrance which we are facing, and this is obstacles for the building infrastructure. By the freedom, some of people start to think that you know, it's always, now it's much more difficult to really pursue where we would like to build and what we would like to build. Before, Communist Party give direction and we build it and it was done. Today we have hundreds of thousands owners, we have ecological movements and all things that building of new infrastructure we do not need, or if we need, they would like to be paid a lot. So those are kind of things which means that not all our connections are already done. We are lagging behind in many respects. And that's why I am also welcoming very much the initiative of the European Commission, because not only existence of the road, but also some other administrative things are really hindering from the free movement of goods and people. Like in railways, not only we have different technology which are not compatible enough, but also we have a lot of regulations and state directive which needs to be followed, and they are not harmonized, and it's not easy to, let me say, physically it's very easy to put the train on the rails and send it from one country to another, or from one spot in the Europe to another spot in the Europe, but if you look at the bureaucratic and administrative hindrances on the way, it's sometimes nearly impossible to establish such a connection. So those are things which we need to deal. Of course, we are also dealing with other things, digitalization. We would like to at least keep, let me say, finger on the development. We are connecting with the aerospace industry and all these activities. We have to deal with things like, you know, regulation of drones, which is on one side big opportunity, on other side people feel it like a big threat for personal protection, but also from the terrorist attacks and other things. So there are plenty of things which are in the field of the transportation, and in order to secure safe connecting of the people, I think we have plenty of work ahead of us, not only in the eastern part of Europe, but in the whole Europe. Safety is especially one thing which we are not considering seriously enough, according to my opinion, because if you consider how we are now, let me say, immune from the road accidents, you know, the fact that nearly 70 people are dying in the roads of European Union daily, it's not evoking any emotions. And I don't want to do any bridge, but if we have a situation that there is a terrorist attack and a couple of people are dying, there is full newspaper about this news, but about the victims of the accidents, there is nearly nothing, except of tabloids and others. So I think we have a great challenges. We have also great opportunities. We need to be aware about all of them. And one of the topics I would like to especially underline, it's urban mobility, because this is things which needs to be taken together. And I think we need to have a realization of the walking, cycling, combination with the public transport and the cars. And I think this is the right combination for future with all the new technologies, because we need to learn people utilize everything from the simple walking. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Tok. I'd like to pass on to Poland, Minister Solopka. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. As far as I see, as I watch our presentations, or opinions, I can see a certain stratification which gives me a more comfortable position because we started from Commissioner Violeta Bulc, then went slightly to the ground and then more to the ground, and maybe I will go farther to the ground because I live close to the ground. I'm only the deputy minister, so I live in the world of construction sites and rolling stock and airports and so on. And what I see from our perspective is that we must and we do go together. Because first of all, we can't apply for European resources if we don't have agreements with the European Commission and with the colleagues from the countries that surround us. And 3 days ago, I had the pleasure to take part in a journey from Białystok, which is the town nearby Warsaw, to Kaunas in Lithuania. For the first time in history, the train went from this point to the other. It is only 300 kilometers, or even less, but for decades we were unable to construct a line, a proper line there. It's still not a proper line, but we are able to see the near future. So we work together, and the expectations of people, of course, is the higher mobility, is the ecological addressed solutions for transportation. Also, it's the smartness of our systems, and to this end, we are quite successful. And I can see it with my own eyes. I hope that the others are also witnesses to that. And what we will have soon, in my opinion, is still competitive, even though it is getting less and less easy because we have Turkish, Arab and other colleagues that subsidize quite heavily the companies, for instance, from that part of the world. And we will have smart solutions. In Poland, for instance, we are now in a process of preparing a special national system for road transport management. It will cost more than 300 million euro, and we hope for the co-financing from CEF instrument, and it will be a very nice solution quite soon. It will help people to shift smoothly from one place to the other, and not only on the wheels. And also, what we need to do is to take some specific steps. I believe that we should attract PPP solutions. We should deal with the issue of public debt with regard to the involvement of the guarantees, of the public guarantees. We should deal with harmonization and clarification of the legislation with regard to state aid. And we should also think about creating a database with projects with regard to the Juncker's Fund. I believe that for the time being is all from my part.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick.
Okay, and I would like to pass on over to Minister Palko, please.
Thank you, Patrick, again. I think that Madam Commissioner Bulc told about the basic and very important goals of the EU transport strategy for the strengthening of the European single market, and I'd like to inform you about position of the Slovak Republic about these goals from the Slovak perspective. Geographic location of the Slovakia means that our country is very important crossroad for international transit. I'd like to speak very briefly about 2 points. First, financial sources for the development of the transport, and second, about strategy in the area of the transport. First, financial resources. You know that domestic sources for the development and for the construction of the infrastructure transport projects are very limited. It's very necessary for Slovakia are sources from the EU funds. It means not only EU structural funds, but we will come to other opportunities and possibilities from the EU. For example, Connecting Europe Facility, Juncker's package, and European Fund for Strategic Investments. In Slovakia, last 3 years, we spent very intensive EU funds sources for very important transport projects, not only important for Slovakia, but for single European market, together with Czech Republic, Hungary, Poland, and with other countries. This year is last year for using money from the period from 2007 and 2013, and we are prepared for the using the EU funds from the next programming period. In Slovakia practice, it means about 3 billion euro in the area of the transport. I told that we will come other possibilities and financial opportunities, and first call from the Connecting Europe facility was very successful for us because we can the construction, for example, bridge Komárno-Komárom together with Hungary Republic, and we would like to spend the money from these financial sources in the project together with Czech Republic in November this year from the second call of the Connecting Europe facility. And I think that financial sources from the EU are limited too, like domestic money in each country. And I think that we have to find next solution for the strengthening of the financial capacity for next transport projects. It means that we have to find cooperation between public sector and private sector. And we have concrete experience in Slovakia with part of highway Bratislava-Nitra, and in this time, at the present, we are preparing very important project, part of highway around Bratislava, and the financial sources would be used together with private sector. Thank you.
We'll get back to some more of those topics a little bit later when we open up with the audience. But thank you, Minister Palko, for that, and I go right over to Mr. Müller. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think it's very interesting to hear about different things concerning transport as an industry and the role of private and public investors in that. And on the other hand, to hear about the human face of all of that. I strongly agree with that point of view, because out of our experience, I have learned when I go to one of our assemblies of our employees, and a general assembly of our employees, about 1,000 people, or even in smaller groups to 20 or something like that, people feel that they are doing an important job, because they are part of transport and organizing infrastructure. They feel themselves as sometimes as, I don't want to say losers, but they see that there is so many discussion about that they see in some regulations a threat to their personal lives. And that means, of course, I know, and we strongly agree that market regulations can help to develop industries, but especially in traffic industry, for instance, and infrastructure, there should be also rules and limits to competition, because otherwise what we have learned is that especially in the services where you have very personal intensive areas, you always have the competition on the personal costs, and that means that there is a pressure on qualification, a pressure on security, on safety, and on all of these things. And I strongly believe that, clear to say, yes, we need market regulations, of course, or we need market solutions, but we also need market regulation. And especially where there is a transport industry or infrastructure built and all these services around the infrastructure, we need a good idea to keep a good level of service and a good level of safety and a good level of human working conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Müller. And I'll pass right on over to the company Luka Koper on Mr. Matic, please.
Yeah, thank you. Also, fully agree from my side about the topics which were mentioned about humanization, digitalization, about safety and so on. On the other side, I would like to point out or to touch maybe a bit different thing. Let's say due to the fact that Port of Koper is really European port. It means that just 1/3 of all traffic which is handled through Port of Koper is for domestic market. So all the rest, 70%, is for our neighboring countries, for our colleagues, which are sitting, some of them here. So for Czech Republic, for Hungary, for Slovak Republic, for Austria, for Poland, for Bavaria, and so on. So even talking with some of them, they are saying Port of Koper is our door, is our opening to the world, and we need infrastructure, we need connection to transport the goods. On the other side, as I said before, port is connecting. One side, hinterland, the other side is the seaside. If we are talking about ecological aspect, then let's say we know that sailing the vessel from Far East to North Adriatic means 6 to 7 days less than sailing to northern ports. What it means, it was mentioned before, less CO2 emissions, less time, more competitive route, sometimes, not always, cheaper route, and at the end, faster route. If we are acting in this respect, let's say we are acting not just in respect of the Europe, we are acting globally. Let's say saving CO2 emission. On the other side, on the hinterland, connection with the neighboring countries, especially Central and Eastern European countries, is shorter than from North Europe. Means again, let's say this route is shorter, is faster, is more competitive. On the other side, Port of Koper is lying on two important corridors. for the railway. One is Baltic Adriatic, the second one is Mediterranean. We think that this policy about talking and establishing the corridors is positive, because in this respect, let's say, the EU is controlling also how the corridor is working, how the finance is going on, and so on in all these countries. On the other sides, let's say, talking about the digitalization, about humans and so on, we have even challenges on the other side. We have challenges on physical, let's say, aspects to connect, let's say, Europe and the countries physically means investing in infrastructure. Talking about Port of Copper, let's say, we are investing in port infrastructure. Maybe to mention that in the next 5 years in this investment period, we will invest about 300 million euro. And what is a big challenge, what we see, not for the port, but I think for Slovenia and for the other countries, is how and when to invest in the railway infrastructure. It was mentioned that railway is, let's say, safe. Railway is environmental friendly. And in this respect, would like just to point out that our port is one, let's say, has one of the biggest share comparing railway transport with the road transport, and the modal split is 60% on the railway transport towards 40% to road transport. And Patrick, you said before to me, I travel to your highways and there is a lot of trucks.
Yes.
Can you imagine if we change this modal split, and the let's say difference will be on the opposite side?
Yeah, absolutely. And those would be the bottlenecks that we don't want to have. So thank you, Mr. Matic, for that. So I'm going to switch gears here. That's an American word that I get away from this thing here a little bit. And so thank you for the panelists. Can we give a round of applause? Because that was a lot of good stuff right there. So we've got 15 minutes. In these last 15 minutes, I want to work with you guys out there, okay? And work together with the panel. And what I'd like to suggest is, you remember your partners from a while ago? In case we did that exercise. We're going to go right back to your partner, and I want to give each of you 1 minute. So you're going to let the partner reflect on all the things that have come up, please, and to get a chance for that one person to share 60 seconds of what did you take with you up until now? How was it? Then I'll switch over another second minute for the second person. At the end of that, the two of you find a question, okay? So I'm thinking if the two of you work together and cooperate, the solution you will find will be better if you do it all by yourselves. And that's going to be the topic I'm going to open up the last piece about, because there's no way any single country is going to fix all this all by yourselves. So here is your task. Can you guys do that one more time? A little bit of interaction with each other. Are you okay? So face your partner. I'll start at 1 minute. We'll do the same up here. How was it up until now? What's your reflection? 2 minutes later, you'll find a question. Okay? Let's try that. Please do that. 1 minute starts now. One minute is up, switch over, listen to the other person for a minute, and after that, you'll find a question. Thank you. Okay. Now, as you wrap up that 1 minute, find a question, the two of you, that you think would be really strong, and I'll be calling you out in about 30 seconds for your question. Okay? So find a question between each of you. Okay? Also for the panelists, a question for each other, if you can find one. I'm going to try to take one from the audience and one from the podium. That should be about as much time as we have. Okay? Now, if you've got like a burning question, I want to do the first question from the audience to the panel. Then there's going to be a question from the panel to the audience, which is kind of interesting. We're going to turn it around. And then we might have time for a third one. Okay? So we're going a little bit tight on time. But I'd ask you, if you've got like a burning question, start raising your hand. If your group had like something good, start raising your hand. Keep going. Anybody else? Keep the hand up because I want to see who's got like the strongest urge. You know, get your hand high up if you're like totally excited and you really want to ask this question. Anybody over here? You guys good? Everyone here is good? Okay, we got one big hand right here. We got another hand over there. And we got a hand here and another one here. So guess what? That's 4. There's no way we can do 4. We'll start with 1. And we'll see what comes, okay? I'll get you the microphone. So ask your question. If you want it specifically to somebody, then say who should answer, okay?
Yeah, it's an open question. So I need some volunteer who like to answer this question. That just 2 days before, there was hold a summit called the Western Balkan Summit. I know that this conference mainly focuses on the infrastructure in this region. So I want to know, concerning the conclusion of this conference, whether you have any measures to cooperate with the third party, especially, for example, China, to cooperate on the infrastructure cooperation in the area of financial cooperation. So this is my question. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, let me repeat that. So financial cooperation, like example for China, with the region. I'll have one person that wants to answer that from the stage. Anybody want to take that? Financial cooperation? Okay, then please, Violetta. Thank you.
Okay, I'll use this opportunity to also bring some highlights to the investments that are going on and that will potentially be going on in Europe and in the region and globally where EU will be engaged. And this is a perfect question for that. You probably are aware of the, or maybe not, the backbone network of 9 corridors that EU defined and signed by all member states in 2014. This year, it was mentioned already, the first call for investments of 11.2 billion euros have been already manifested. And some really excellent projects have been funded, including many from the countries that you see the ministers here. The next call is coming at the end of the year, or possibly beginning of the next. Another 7 billion euros will be shared for infrastructure projects. However, what the colleague is asking is Europe, of course, especially EU, knows really well that without global connectivity, Europe will become an isolated island, which we certainly don't want. So the first great initiative, and I'm glad that I can see some partners from that initiative in the audience, has been made with the extension of 29 corridors, European corridors, with the 6 Balkan countries. And that has been signed by prime ministers, the maps have been agreed, and now the projects are underway to reconnect the Balkan region with the 9 European corridors as well. So the new EFSI fund, which is, we talked about it already, is also encouraging partnership between all the countries that are in the process of joining EU to elaborate that and use this available funding also for their own projects, but it has to be in a cooperation with at least one of the member states. So this is the extension, and this is now undergoing. Another one that European Union is now engaging in is a dialogue with China. China has initiated a so-called Silk Road initiative in infrastructure, trying to connect Europe by land via railways with Asia. And we are actively participating. In 3 weeks, I'm joining EU delegation to China in the first official visit regarding the common investment platforms and further plans on the Silk Road, which is going to be a very important initiative for both sides, Europe and Asia. At the same time, we are starting now also negotiations with countries that are on the Silk Road, especially with Armenia, Georgia, Ukraine, in order to create something similar as we did for Western Balkans, also for that region, and then come closer to the manifestation of a Silk Road on the long run. So these are really, really important investments. I'm glad that we have on the Chinese side the partners who want to discuss that we coordinate investments, that we don't double investments, but that we have some sort of agreement on that aspect. And this is what it all means to become a huge, big global market and global partnership. And similar initiatives are now going on in the Middle East, where they're under the launch of one of the largest railway projects ever globally, where I'm glad to say that we are in close discussions about these projects as well, and some of European partners have already won first bids for particular sections of that projects, and we believe that there is a huge opportunity for all European partners on that. So yes, there are huge investment projects. Yes, we are collaborating globally, and yes, we do believe that this is the future, and we have to extend and expand our infrastructure projects and connect them with all other possible similar projects on a global scale. Talking about railways, talking about aviation, talking about maritime, inland waterways. Roads are a little bit specific on that, but I'm sure we're going to come up with something that will connect that mode as well. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Bulc. So we now have enough time for one more question from the podium to the audience. And you had a good question, Minister Kasperčić. Would you want to ask that to the audience, and I'll help you, okay? So.
Okay, thank you. I was just saying at the beginning of this panel that we are facing big changes in transport sector, and I'm looking forward to those changes and challenges, and one of them is of course decarbonization and using more of public transport. And I think that electric mobility is also one of the big changes which is coming very soon and will probably change a lot the way we move. And regarding that, I think that using the car in a different way is one of the things which is coming with connection with digitalization. So I think that we will soon have to think of using our car in a different way, so that we do not own a car anymore, but we could use the car which is available as a public means of transport, which is available per, let's say, digital app. You could order it, you could use it, and you could return it, and it will be available for another person. So I was just wondering how many of us here would be prepared to get rid of ownership of your own car and use cars in such a way, so as a public means of transport.
Okay, so I think that's a great question. I would first ask you guys, by show of hands, how many of you would be willing to give away your personal automobile and only share a car in the future? How many on the panel? You don't even have a car, so. Okay, so we got two here. Anybody in the audience thinks that's a great idea, that you'd want to do that? Does anybody want to give me a voice? You want to say something to that? Raise your hand if you would like to say something about that idea, because that's the last, pretty much the last statement that this room is going to have. And I want to get one of you to do a last statement. So anybody want to say something to that? Okay, right here.
So just a quick response, not about the people that are prepared to do it. Some of us are actually doing it or have done it already, and it's great. I recommend it to everyone.
Yeah, there's all kinds of really great startups that are doing that all over the place right now. So I'm going to look at my little clocky thing here, because I am German, and it is now exactly 3:30, which is exactly the finish of this whole panel. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to go over. I know on television the guys are always allowed to go over and stuff. I would basically close with a couple of elements. Were you okay, Commissioner, with the closing you just did? Okay, so I think the first thing I'd like to do is thank all of our panelists deeply for their attention and for their sharing of these different perspectives, okay? And you could feel all those elements come together. I think we would need a second panel to ask that question of how are you going to connect it together between every single country and every single company to make Europe the strongest infrastructure in the world, but that's a different panel. We'll have to take that next time. So let's have a round of applause, a big thank you for our panelists. Thank you very much. Okay, now shake hands with your partner. Please give a shake hand or a hug or a kiss or whatever else you want to do with each other. Be thankful. Okay, and now give it a round of applause for yourselves. Thank you very much.